Much of eastern England and eastern Scotland, generally a dry, fine start. Plenty of showers, though, in the west, and those showers will simply become more widespread as we go through the day. But as I said, generally a dry, fine start over East Anglia and the Midlands. The showers in West Wales, northwest England, likely to be heavy. Might even get a rumble of thunder again. And the showers moving through Northern Ireland. Again, there are parts of the east starting dry, and that east-west split also in evidence across Scotland, with plenty of showers in the west. The wind's not as strong as today, but still a gusty, blusterous day. The showers will, as I say, become more widespread, certainly from late morning onwards. We'll see some over the Midlands and eastern England. Always, though, most feeling fresher with the wind when the showers come along, and there'll be more of them on Saturday too. Again, that mixture of bright spells and heavy showers. We may start with some across the southeast on Saturday morning, but again, most of the showers in the west developing more widely through the day. Again, the odd rumble of thunder. Again, temperatures close to average, and then things likely to turn wet and very windy by the time we get to Sunday. Goodbye.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
This is your chance to win a motorhome and cash in our biggest giveaway to date. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be the proud owner of this 2025 Benamar Primero. It comfortably accommodates 4 people and can be driven on your standard driving licence. Plus, you'll also bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dawdney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
Practice Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good evening. It's me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, on State of the Nation tonight.
The Prime Minister has asked the Foreign Secretary to withdraw him as ambassador to the United States.
Lord Mandelson is sacked as Britain's ambassador to the United States just a week before President Trump's state visit, as the revelations of his relationship with disgraced paedophile Jeffrey Epstein continue to come out. The question now is, what did the Prime Minister know and when, and why did it take so long for Lord Mandelson to be fired? Also tonight.
This is a dark moment for America.
The world witnessed the tragic assassination of American political activist Charlie Kirk last night. Grief and prayers expressed from all over the world. Is politics becoming more violent, or does the problem lie within the American system? Plus, Nigel Farage has become a significant figure in the United States political stage in recent years, developing a very public friendship with President Trump. But is his involvement a good thing, or should he keep his focus here in Britain? Also recently, I interviewed the Reverend Fergus Butler-Galley to discuss his new book, 12 Churches, an unlikely history of the buildings that made Christianity. The answers will delight and surprise you. State of the Nation starts now. Also be joined by my preternaturally pugnacious panel, the Reform Mayor of Greater Lincolnshire, Dame Andrea Jenkins, and the historian and broadcaster, Dr. Tessa Dunlop. As ever, I always want to hear from you. Let me know your views. mailmog@gbnews.com. But now, it's your favourite time of the day, the News Bulletin with Tatiana Sanchez.
Jacob, thank you very much. The top stories this evening. Lord Mandelson has been sacked as Britain's ambassador to the United States after emails revealed the true depth of his relationship with paedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein. Mandelson admitted further embarrassing emails were likely to emerge, including one in which he called Epstein his best pal. Sir Keir Starmer told MPs yesterday he still had confidence in Mandelson, but today in the Commons, his withdrawal was confirmed. The FBI has released images of a person of interest in the killing of Charlie Kirk and offers a $100,000 reward for information. The killer is at large and officials say the suspect appears to be of college age. 30-year-old conservative activist Charlie Kirk was shot while giving a talk at Utah Valley University. Eyewitnesses say a figure on a rooftop fired a single round, hitting him in the neck. Kirk was rushed to hospital by his security team, but 2 hours later, the US president announced Kirk had died of his injuries. Donald Trump says he will award Charlie Kirk with the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Israel's president met the Prime Minister in Downing Street yesterday, a day after the deadly strike on Qatar's capital, Doha, which has drawn up much criticism. There have been rumours of tensions between Sir Keir Starmer and the Israeli president during their meeting. Isaac Herzog sat down with GB News' Martin Daubney, warning the following contains some flashing images.
Because it's dangerous, it will flare up emotions, it won't bring out any hostage, and we won't help any Palestinian. On the contrary, I demand from world leaders, including the British government, to stand firm together and say to Hamas, we won't talk to any Palestinian, any one of you, until you release the hostages. They'll see that it may work better.
Former Commons leader Lucy Powell has secured enough MP nominations to go head-to-head with the Education Secretary and Labour's deputy leadership race. Backbencher Belle Ribeiro-Addy was knocked out of the race after she failed to get the 80 nominations from Labour MPs required to advance to the next stage. Bridget Phillipson picked up 175 nominations, Ms Powell 117 and Ms Ribeiro-Addy 24, according to the final tally after today's deadline. The three other MPs who'd initially thrown their hat in the ring to succeed Angela Rayner struggled to get anywhere near the threshold and dropped out before nominations closed. And today marks the anniversary of the 9/11 terror attacks that shocked the world. Vigils have been held across the globe, including in the US and the UK, to remember the victims and heroes from that fatal day. US President Donald Trump addressed a memorial service in Arlington to mark the day.
Together we will go forward as one people with one heart, one fate, one flag, and one glorious destiny under Almighty God. May God bless the memories of those who died and the heroes who fought and the soldiers who still stand watch. May God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much.
Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. Now it's back to Jacob.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Welcome back to State of the Nation. Lord Mandelson has been sacked as His Majesty's Britannic His Britannic Majesty's ambassador to the United States. The sacking follows the emergence of details about his close relationship with convicted paedophile and sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein.
In light of additional information in emails written by Peter Mandelson, the Prime Minister has asked the Foreign Secretary to withdraw him as ambassador to the United States. The emails show, Mr. Speaker, that the depth and extent of Lord Mandelson's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein is materially different from that known at the time of his appointment.
On Tuesday, we learned of a letter allegedly written to Epstein by Lord Mandelson, referring to him as his best pal and describing him as an intelligent, sharp-witted man who parachuted into his life. Lord Mandelson said he regretted ever meeting Epstein.
A tremendous sense, a profound sense of sympathy for those people, those women who suffered. I regret very, very deeply indeed carrying on that association with him for far longer than I should have done.
The next day it was revealed he told him his friends would stick by him and advised him to fight for early release. Despite these reports, the Reverend Starmer backed his ambassador to the hilt.
The relationship between the US and the UK is one of our foremost relationships, and I have confidence in the ambassador in the role that he is doing.
Confidence in the ambassador in the role he is doing. Well, that didn't last long, did it? And now the questions flood in. What did the Prime Minister know? Was Lord Mandelson vetted? If so, were things swept under the rug? This is a lose-lose situation for the Prime Minister. One possibility is that Lord Mandelson was, as Number 10 insists, vetted thoroughly and extensively, in which case these problems would have been found, therefore indicating the Prime Minister was aware of them and either decided to ignore them or thought that they didn't really matter. The other possibility is that Lord Mandelson was not properly vetted, in which case the Prime Minister and his team are guilty of an egregious dereliction of duty. They made the choice. Most ambassadors are diplomats. They, that is to say the Prime Minister and Foreign Secretary, then David Lammy, made the specific choice to have Lord Mandelson rather than a diplomat. Therefore, they surely needed to be certain of his probity, because when these associations were made public, the Prime Minister shouldn't have been surprised and should have taken action swiftly and sacked Lord Mandelson immediately. That's what a leader would do. Keir Starmer did not lead. He kept Lord Mandelson in post for another 48 hours, as he did with Angela Rayner last week, after everyone else in the country realised that he could not continue as His Majesty's ambassador. And this not only weakens Starmer's authority, but it also makes Britain look weak. Former Home Secretary Suella Braverman told GB News earlier today,
Mandelson should never have been appointed to this role in the first place. Proper checks obviously didn't take place, and the Prime Minister's judgment has been found to be severely lacking. This has humiliated not just the Prime Minister, but more importantly, the United Kingdom. We've now lost our main man in Washington at a critical time of global insecurity, right before the state visit. It's embarrassing for the United Kingdom as a whole, and I'm ashamed to have Keir Starmer as our Prime Minister right now.
1 week from President Trump's state visit, we are without an ambassador to the United States, and in the aftermath of the previous incumbent's scandal, it's been reported today to appoint Mandelson that Keir Starmer ignored 2 previous resignations for financial impropriety, a well-publicised friendship with the world's most notorious paedophile, and alleged warnings from his own security services. The Prime Minister is facing these serious questions. What did he know? When did he know it? And why, when the scandal was made public, did he hesitate to take action? Is he still fit for office? Does he have a moral compass? As ever, let me know what you think, mailmog at gbnews.com. But I am now joined by GB News' senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson, along with my preternaturally pugnacious panel. Nigel, let me come to you first. You actually are about the first person ever to have sacked Peter Mandelson.
Yes, I beat Tony Blair to it, yes.
He's got a history of being sacked for being difficult. In your case, he wouldn't write the column that was wanted. Twice for financial impropriety. Now for being too close to a known paedophile. Why on earth did Starmer appoint somebody with this record?
Well, because he's actually extremely talented and probably the best political brain around in the Labour Party. So that part I understand. We knew that he was always going to be a controversial figure. That controversy was in the public domain. So obviously Keir Starmer thought that he would actually be able to get through it, and so far he's done a reasonable job.
But it's unusual to make these political appointments. Peter Jay, son-in-law of James Callaghan, was appointed, one or two others, but normally our ambassadors are professional diplomats. If you're going to push at the convention, not breach it, but push at it, then you have to be absolutely sure, rather than appointing somebody on a wing and a prayer, that they'll turn out to be all right.
Yes, I think that's true. And so, in a sense, you're always taking a risk with Peter Mandelson. And when we last talked about this on Tuesday, I really did think Peter Mandelson would survive, that what had come out was embarrassing, being seen in a bathrobe and on Epstein's Caribbean island, some of those emails. But embarrassment is not a reason for sacking somebody. It was the killer emails that came out on Wednesday night that I think did for him, where when it was actually revealed that, as you've just said, that he championed Epstein's early release and also helped him out with advice over the conviction he'd first had.
But wasn't there a risk to national security in appointing him? Because we're part of the Five Eyes, it's a very close security relationship, the ambassador is an important part of that. And either the vetting was all this compromising information on Mandelson, or else the Prime Minister appointed him knowing there was information that if it got into the public domain would be damaging, just the sort of thing that foreign agents would want to know about an ambassador who knows lots of secrets.
Yeah, but the kind of the vetting process, it rather obviously depends what Peter Mandelson told the vetting people, assuming they asked him questions about Epstein. Bear in mind, at that point, that was again all in the public domain. It may be the vetting people would want to know about all his visits to Moscow, for instance. But those were done. Yes. Those were done as part of his duties as Trade Commissioner, EU Trade Commissioner. So there was nothing strange about that. I can't quite see what the vetting people could have done more without having the information that we have now. And of course, all that was locked up.
Which Peter Mandelson would have known, because he would have known about this correspondence. So you're implying that Mandelson didn't reveal the full truth when vetted? If
he was asked about in detail about Jeffrey Epstein, that's the only conclusion you can draw.
OK, well, let me bring my panel in. Tessa, doesn't this leave the Prime Minister with serious questions to answer about his judgment and his moral compass and his inability to read the political situation, both with Angela Rayner and with Peter Mandelson? It was obvious to almost everybody else that they had to go long before Starmer made his decision.
I think you're being a little bit mendacious, actually, Jacob. There's been a heft of bad luck on Keir Starmer's part. Funnily enough, and you know that I'm not an ardent Starmer supporter. I think he's a drab little man and an average manager and certainly not a leader. But this landed, unfortunately, on his plate the week after Angela Rayner. He couldn't really control that timing. At the time, I remember, nobody really on left or right complained about Mandelson's appointment. It was seen, actually, as a canny move that delivered the trade agreement that paved the way to the state visit next week. And Nigel's spot on. What's subsequently been revealed in a defunct email that was not accessible by the vetting committee or the Prime Minister, he couldn't possibly have known unless he had a sort of third vision. So, no, I don't question Starmer's integrity. I think he acted ruthlessly and swiftly, and the reason he didn't act a day earlier, you know as well as I do, is because Mandelson is not the only man skating on thin ice. There's an individual called Donald Trump who is skating on very thin Epstein ice.
Much less thin ice, because his relationship with Epstein stopped in 2004, whereas Mandelson's went on until he was actually already found guilty.
If you really believe that, why hasn't he released the files in full?
Well, I do believe that, because that's the evidence that is available. And that Starmer said how confident he was in his ambassador at Prime Minister's questions.
He didn't say he was fully confident. He hedged his bet slightly. I agree, by the way, Kemi Badenoch had a better day on Wednesday than she normally does.
Andrew Starmer just isn't up to it, is he? He doesn't have a moral compass. He doesn't know whether people are fit for office or not.
I mean, I disagree with you, Tessa, with respect. It's not bad luck, it's bad leadership. And you've been a minister, I've been a minister, Jacob. You do get solid briefings on things, don't you? I mean, for the Prime Minister to not to have had this detail, and look, the fact that he was aligned and it was in public knowledge, his relationship with Epstein in the first place should have ruled him out as a bad candidate, personally. That's my view. And I just think it's an embarrassment, actually. And I do wonder, actually, and I'll put this out there, but what does Mandelson have on Starmer to even appoint him?
Oh, come on. I think we all know that big political game playing comes with a heft of risk. And Mandelson, I agree, the Prince of Darkness is a very unsavoury side to Mandelson, but you can't deny his talent at the same time.
But he should be advising the Labour Party in the background, not in such a significant role. I mean, look, I knew the great Sir Christopher Mayer, and so did you, Jacob. You know, that's the kind of person we want, someone calm, who's able to build bridges. I mean, you know, I'm seen as a controversial character, Jacob is. You need somebody during this time who can bridge both nations, and he was not a good choice, in my view.
But is it just me? I don't remember, Jacob, and I don't remember of either of you two decrying the appointment of Mandelson.
There were lots of rumours that he might be refused by Donald Trump.
Yes.
But he wasn't, and then we all thought he's done rather well. In fact, the right
but there were lots of rumours about it. I don't think the right has ever supported Peter Mandelson.
I think it's the one thing that people generally say he's done all right on the world stage, Starmer, backed up by Mandelson.
I want to come back, Nigel, to you, because this is redolent of previous periods of government when you get a minister or an official and the Prime Minister says, I've got confidence in him, he will stay, he's very important, I'm dependent upon him, I think he's marvellous. He's gone. And this happened.
But, I mean, the idea of actually saying full confidence in somebody is a political cliché. I mean, you always say that while they're still in office, even if they're going to leave office 12 hours later. It's a bit like the government saying no plans to do something until it actually happens. So I don't think that you can blame Keir Starmer for saying what he did at Prime Minister's questions. He didn't take the decision until 10 o'clock this morning that Mandelson had to go, and that was based on fresh evidence that had come through the previous night.
But isn't it unwise in the context of this to roll out these old cliches when you know the next day you may be having to eat your own words? It makes you look weak and incompetent.
But the question is when the decision was actually made, and until that decision is made, you have to use those words, because otherwise you would leap on it and say, oh, he's off.
I haven't got confidence. Anyway, thank you to Nigel and my panel. Coming up in just a moment.
This is a dark moment for America.
The world witnessed the tragic assassination of American political activist Charlie Kirk last night, with grief and prayers expressed from all over the world. Is politics becoming more violent, or does the problem lie within the American system?
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
I'm excited for them. They match each other in ambition, and it gives you faith, amen, that you can have it all, a successful career and start a family. I think it's very romantic. And I love the way that he celebrates her. I think that that's the sweetest thing to watch. I mean, they do celebrate each other, but watching the way Travis celebrates Taylor's wins is really, I mean, she could be an intimidating character. She's this self-made, very intelligent woman.
And they're just such a lovely couple together, aren't they, Kinsey? I mean, this is huge news all over the world. It got millions of likes within minutes, didn't it? But it's huge news stateside, because even the president was asked about it. And we've got a clip of that. Let's just have a listen to what he had to say.
Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift are engaged, and the world wants your reaction, sir.
Well, I wish him a lot of luck. I think he's a great player. I think he's a great guy, and I think that she's a terrific person. So I wish them a lot of luck.
That's very nice, Kinsey. Very generous towards Taylor Swift, because he said previously, I think, that he hates her, hasn't he?
He did say that on Truth Social, so this is an improvement. Yeah, I mean, this is more than a celebrity couple. It's become a cultural milestone. They met through Travis's podcast. He went to her concert and was disappointed that he didn't get to meet her and was complaining about it on his podcast. And they quickly became the most talked about pairing in modern pop culture. She attends his games. NFL ratings have gone through the roof over it. And you're right, it is a national talking point. So, of course, we're excited 2 years after they started dating that they're going to take the next big step and get married.
When is the big day likely to be, Kinsey?
I think that they might keep this a secret from us.
The People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, welcome back. I'm still Jacob Rees-Mogg, and we were talking about Peter Mandelson, and the Mail Moggs have come storming in. Dora says, and to think of this really good letter from Dora, and to think Starmer demanded Boris Johnson's resignation because he looked at cake. And Billy says, Starmer's judgment and leadership is once more shown up. Utter incompetence. Mandelson was damaged goods. He should have kept the well-respected and capable Karen Pierce in place. And Matt says, our honourable US ambassador, who had never done a day's work as a diplomat prior to Starmer handing him the jewel in the diplomatic crown. I don't know, I'd thought the jewel in the diplomatic crown is Ambassador Extraordinary Plenipotentiary of the Holy See, but that may be a minority taste. The world was stunned and saddened last night as the prominent American political activist Charlie Kirk was assassinated during a speaking event at Utah Valley University. Tributes immediately started coming in from President Trump to actors and influencers. Here is President Trump's reaction to the event.
Charlie Kirk traveled the nation, joyfully engaging with everyone interested in good faith debate. His mission was to bring young people into the political process, which he did better than anybody ever.
It's no secret that adversity and division in politics have escalated in recent years. In the United States, there have been several politically motivated attacks, including a hammer attack on Nancy Pelosi, the former Speaker of the House of Representatives' husband, in his own house. And, of course, the failed assassination attempt on President Trump in July 2024. Here in the United Kingdom, 2 serving members of Parliament have been murdered at or immediately after constituency surgeries in recent years. Does the tragic killing of Charlie Kirk belie a deeper problem that politics is becoming more dangerous? Well, I've got a special guest, Louise Mensch, who lives in America now, former Conservative MP and author, as well as my panel, the Reform Mayor of Greater Lincolnshire, Dame Andrew Jenkins, and the historian broadcaster, Dr. Tessa Dunlop. Louise, you normally live in America, visiting at the moment. Do you sense that when you're in America that it's become a more dangerous place and that politics has become more angry than it used to be?
No to the first one and yes to the second one. I think it's pretty easy to say, unfortunately, that this is a problem of left-wing violence, and certainly the rumours being reported in the United States are that there were pro-trans rights and Antifa messages written on the bullets left in the chamber of the gun they think killed Charlie Kirk. But that would be too simplistic. As you point out, Nancy Pelosi's elderly husband was brained in a hammer attack that was meant for Pelosi herself. He was 79 years old, if memory serves. The Democratic governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, was the subject of a plot to capture her and torture her and kill her. And there was 2 count them 2 assassination attempts on President Trump. And it's easy to say that this kind of thing has to stop, but in a world that is increasingly online and poisoned by social media, I'm afraid that extremists of both sides have got more or less a free run at it, and politicians have to decide what's more important, giving up my voice and giving up going out and talking to the people, as Charlie Kirk did, or playing it safe. Charlie Kirk was brave to go out and debate.
And do you think that the language used by politicians, Donald Trump has said the use of terms like Nazi and so on, make this worse? Or is this to an extent something that's always happened? Obviously, in the 1960s, Martin Luther King was assassinated, Robert Kennedy and John F. Kennedy were assassinated. American politics does have more violence in it and, of course, has more guns in it than we do in Britain.
Well, it certainly has more guns in it, and ever since Lincoln was assassinated at the theatre, I'm afraid this has been a constant in American life, but it is undoubtedly getting worse. Whereas you might have had one such event a decade, now you're having one such event a year, if you're lucky, and often it is more than that. And I do think that President Trump is absolutely right. If you go around calling people Nazis when all they've done is to promote views that you somewhat disagree with, then you are really in a bad way. President George W. Bush came out and said what I think is absolutely right, that in politics we've got opponents, not enemies. You know, I don't rate Keir Starmer very highly, but my goodness, I don't wish any harm to him. And I don't think anybody in this room tonight does.
And so which politicians are responsible for ramping this up? Or is it actually not politicians, but people on the internet who are remote, who aren't actually accountable to anybody, who are the source of this anger and this raising of the temperature?
I'm afraid I blame the internet. And as somebody that is very fond of my Twitter following, or my X following as it's now known, and I do enjoy what social media brings. It's a great leveller. It lets us all debate. It gives us all a voice and a platform. It has undoubtedly poisoned the discourse.
Let me bring my panel in. Tessa, do you think we are relatively complacent in the UK, that we think we're relatively safe? And how does this change politics if politicians become more concerned about their personal safety?
I think it's a very different landscape in the UK. We have seen murders, political murders, Joe Cox and subsequently David Amos, so 2 in recent years. I think we have also seen a hollowing out of the political debate. The solid middle seems to have withered, and the extremism and people chasing votes and saying more and more extraordinary things. But actually, in America, they have guns left, right and centre. In Utah campus, you can walk into your lecture with a gun in your pocket. This is totally different. It would be almost not impossible, but much, much harder to kill somebody in Britain on a podium giving a lecture, just by definition, because where would the firearm come from? And if you actually look at the history of assassinations in America, go back to the 60s, there's a spate. In fact, you missed a few. There were so many. There was Malcolm X in 65. There were the 2 Kennedys either side of the decade. There was Martin Luther King, who predicted his assassination. And then you also had one in 1972, the George Wallace, the Alabama. He was disabled for life. So, and that's in the spate of a decade. And what's fascinating about the 60s, and if you compare it to now, it was awash with conspiracy theories. You had McCarthyism, communism. As soon as George Kennedy died, people said, oh, it's the Ku Klux Klan, it's communism, it's from Cuba. You know, there was all sorts of rumours and polarisation at that time.
Andrew, do you think these conspiracy theories encourage this type of violence, that they give a cause for people who are probably unbalanced anyway, and then they create a wider risk to politicians and society at large?
I think it does, but I also think it's the element that people are struggling at the moment and they want politicians to fix the problems. They put all their faith in them to change things. I mean, we've seen it with the Labour government, haven't we, where there's been buyer remorse. They want change. They want their lives to be better. So I think it's feeling let down. And like we see the flags across the country, I think that's an outpouring. Look, we're here. Please listen to us. I mean, regarding Charlie Kirk, though, I mean, I was really affected by that. Was you? Did you see the video of that little beautiful girl running to her father, running to Charlie? Any parent, it just breaks your heart, doesn't it? And he wasn't a politician. Yeah, he wasn't a politician. He was somebody who just believed in freedom of speech. And if you watched any of his debates, he's very polite. He'd even defend those people who had opposite views if they was being jumped on by the rest of the people in the lecture theatre. And Yeah, he was fair. And for that to happen to somebody who is not even an elected politician, it shows you the state of our society. I mean, I was in the US Embassy today. It's very poignant, Jacob. It was for the 9/11, commemoration, and the ambassador actually mentioned Charlie Kirk and paid tribute to him, and that was a really poignant moment, given it was only last night it happened.
But, just to go back, because he was very open, Charlie Kirk. I found him fascinating. My teenage daughter was constantly clicking and listening and was, you know, absolutely affected. He did have a way of galvanising the young for the Republican movement, and normally there was sort of an oil and water relationship there. So he was extraordinary, he was charismatic, but he was also very candid. You know, he wanted to hold on to the Second Amendment, and he said collateral will be some gun deaths.
I just want to come back to you, Louise, because you've been a politician in the UK and you've lived in the US. Do you think fear of violence is greater in either of these places, and does it affect the behaviour and the accessibility of politicians?
No, and actually I think it does not, and that's a tribute to the American character. You have to understand that for us in Britain it seems odd that so many people in America are armed, but it is a fundamental part of the American character. They believe that having guns protects them from an overbearing government or from enemies, foreign and domestic, and it is part of the Constitution, of course, as we all know, the Second Amendment. I think it is really tragic that Charlie Kirk, who chose to do these public events, probably never thought he would be a target himself because he isn't an elected politician. His slogan was, "Change my mind." And if there's one thing that Andreas made this point, and she's absolutely right, he laid it out and said, they said at the event at which he was killed, if you are against Charlie, great, you go to the head of the queue, the head of the line, as they would say in America. He wanted to hear from his opponents, and that really is admirable. But the Americans will not be bowed. I'm now a dual citizen. They won't be bowed, they won't give in to fear, and they won't give in to pressure. Just like Margaret Thatcher, after the bombing of the hotel in Brighton, she insisted that you go on as normal and everybody be properly dressed and nothing should stop the debate.
All right. Thank you very much to Louise and to my panel. We just pray for Charlie Kirk for a moment. Requiem aeternam Dei Domine, lux perpetua lucet eis, requiescat in pacem. Amen.
Amen.
We will be coming back shortly.
Nigel Farage. Where is Nigel? Yeah, what a great guy.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Northern parts of Europe will see any heavy downpours and thunderstorms easing away, though some light showers remaining in places. That's away from Spain and Portugal, though. High pressure dominating, so largely settled here. Plenty of sunshine, though we could see some occasional showers affecting Barcelona. Also some showers across northern parts of Italy, Switzerland and also Austria. But elsewhere across Italy, the Adriatic coastline and across Greece, plenty of sunshine to come. That theme continuing as we head into next week, and temperatures widely in the mid to high 20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Evening. Tomorrow will be pretty similar to today. We're going to see heavy downpours, but 5 minutes later, the sun may well be out. A gusty wind blowing the heads across the country, and like today, might even be a few thunderstorms around as well. Here's the reason why. Low pressure sitting just to the northwest. It's been a very wet and windy day in the far northwest. The winds ease a touch through the night, but the rain will persist over the Highlands and the Western Isles. Elsewhere, lots of showers zipping through at the moment, but they will tend to ease from many eastern areas. I think lengthy clear spells here. Showers never too far away from western coasts. Temperature-wise, well, dipping down into single figures for some spots. Fresh but bright start to Friday over the Midlands, much of eastern England and eastern Scotland. Generally a dry, fine start. Plenty of showers, though, in the west, and those showers will simply become more widespread as we go through the day. But as I said, generally a dry, fine start over East Anglia and the Midlands. The showers in West Wales, northwest England, likely to be heavy. Might even get a rumble of thunder again, and the showers moving through Northern Ireland. Again, no parts of the east starting dry, and that east-west split also in evidence across Scotland, with plenty of showers in the west. The wind's not as strong as today, but still a gusty, blusterous day. The showers will, as I say, become more widespread, certainly from late morning onwards. We'll see some over the Midlands and eastern England. Always, though, most frequent in the west, just zipping through on that brisk and gusty wind, making it feel cooler than the numbers would suggest. Temperatures actually close to average for the time of year, but certainly feeling fresher with the wind and when the showers come along, and there'll be more of them on Saturday too. Again, that mixture of bright spells and heavy showers. We may start with some across the southeast on Saturday morning, but again, most of the showers in the west developing more widely through the day. Again, the odd rumble of thunder. Again, temperatures close to average, and then things likely to turn wet and very windy by the time we get to Sunday. Goodbye.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Reform leader and GB News presenter Nigel Farage has become a prominent figure in United States politics in recent years, publicly befriending Donald Trump, speaking at Conservative rallies and earning a huge following. Just last week, Mr Farage testified about Britain's free speech woes in Congress. But this transatlantic popularity has led some to accuse Nigel Farage of having misguided priorities, saying he should be more focused on his job here in Britain. Is Nigel Farage's presence in the United States broadly a good thing or not? Well, I'm still joined by the former MP and author, Louise Mensch. Louise, thank you for coming in, because you're now living in America. And you see, from the perspective of a former Conservative MP, the Reform Member of Parliament, Nigel Farage, probably being better known in the States than the Prime Minister. Is this a good thing for the UK? Does it help our reputation?
Because I am sure that over the years I've called Nigel Farage every name under the sun, no exceptions. But after all, J.D. Vance called Donald Trump every name under the sun and now is his vice president. I think that Farage made an excellent point which needs to be made about free speech, which is under attack clearly in the United Kingdom. And you are quite right to say that he has perhaps more influence than Sir Keir Starmer. It must be remembered that Nigel Farage's links with Donald Trump go back long before this second term of Mr Trump's. He was with President Trump right after he was elected the very first time, and he's had links to him for absolutely years. And if there's one thing Donald Trump prizes, it's loyalty. He knows that Nigel Farage likes him, rates him, always has rated him, and therefore he listens to him. So Britain has another strong voice in the ear of the United States presidents in Nigel Farage. I am desperately hoping that Mr Farage may be able to persuade President Trump to stop the giveaway of the Chagos Islands at enormous cost to the British taxpayer and the surrender of our sovereignty when there's no reason for it. It's that kind of thing that he can do for us even before he gets into government.
But if Nigel Farage were an American, I think it would be illegal for him to be talking to foreign governments in this way, that there are all sorts of laws in America to stop politicians other than those in the government from developing their own foreign policy.
That's right.
Do you think Americans think this is rather odd, that another Briton turns up and says, well, actually, I think policy being followed by Keir Starmer is absolute nonsense and undermining the diplomatic efforts of His Majesty's government?
I don't think so, because, as you rightly say, he isn't an American. He is entitled to pursue whatever foreign policy he thinks Britain should have. Clearly, he is recognised in America as being a likely future Prime Minister. The New York Times will refer to him as such. And they noted, for example, that when J.D. Vance came over recently for a holiday, he met with Nigel Farage, and although he said nice words about Kemi Badenoch, he didn't meet with her. He could hardly avoid meeting the then Foreign Secretary David Lammy. So actually, I think people see him as the coming man, and they believe that he's important because he may very well lead America's greatest and strongest ally. I think it is vitally important that we have people on both sides of the aisle that can talk in that way to Donald Trump, and that's what Farage can do.
And how well do Americans know about Nigel? Is he a household name? Is he a household name in political households, but not more broadly?
Yes, I think perhaps the latter. It would not be right to say that he is a household name. Nobody in Britain is a household name unless they've got Prince or King in front of their name. That's the only way that you get to be a household name in America if you're British. Or Margaret Thatcher, of blessed memory, but not so much. However, for those that do follow politics and for those that are interested in international politics, he is a key figure, particularly because the debate about free speech is being covered very greatly. The Lucy Connolly affair was covered greatly. Nigel's difference from Sir Keir Starmer on the issue of free speech is important to America.
And putting your other hat on as a former British Member of Parliament, do you think British parliamentarians should go to a foreign parliament and wash their country's dirty linen in a foreign laundrette?
No, but is that what Farage is doing?
Isn't that what he did before Congress?
I don't think he did. I think he laid out, these are our rules, I don't agree with them, here's why, and he made the very good point that it is damaging to Britain's interest to be perceived as anti-American, and that's what our free speech laws are perceived as. I found it ridiculous that Keir Starmer is trying to position himself now as some kind of free speech advocate. When I was a Member of Parliament, my constituent Paul Chambers made a small joke on Twitter about blowing up Rodman Hood Airport in the Midlands if it didn't get its act together. It was an obvious joke. As DPP, Keir Starmer personally prosecuted him for 2 years, overriding advice from his juniors to let it go and let it drop. This is not a man who's in favour of free speech, and I do think that Nigel Farage is right to call him out on it.
Well, I think this is one of the great things about our parliamentary system. 13 years after you left Parliament, you are still campaigning for your constituent. That's how British politics works. Louise, thank you very much for joining me. For my viewers, Louise writes lots of brilliant books, which you can get in all suitable bookstores and Amazon, though she's always banned me from reading them because I believe they're a bit racy. Anyway, coming up in a moment, I recently interviewed the Reverend Fergus Butler-Galley, whose book isn't racy, to discuss his new book, 12 Churches, An Unlikely History of the Buildings That Made Christianity. The answers, I hope, will delight and surprise you.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is the end of it. Wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Well, we've been talking about what people in America think about Nigel Farage, and the mail mogs have come in, and they're fascinating reading. Jeremy says, Nigel is the biggest asset to our country. We need a loyal ambassador. Yeah, but then we'd lose him as an MP. And Joe says, thank goodness for reform. Nigel Farage is speaking for the nation. And Dom says, Farage speaks for a decent chunk of the country. Ideas of the old left and right are gone. You are now either a globalist bent on abdicating all governmental responsibility to unelected international bodies, or you are the rest of us. And the rest of us outnumber the other side significantly. Thank you for the mail mogs, as always. It's now time for the book club. Recently, I interviewed the Reverend Fergus Butler-Galley about his new book, 12 Churches, An Unlikely History of the Buildings That Made Christianity, from the Vatican to a Reformed Anglican cathedral to a remote Greek Orthodox monastery. The effect these churches' stories and legacies have on our day-to-day life is surprisingly significant. Well, welcome to the book club, Fergus Butler-Galley. I'm delighted to have you with me to discuss your book on 12 churches. What made you want to write a book about church buildings, which isn't an architectural study?
Well, I suppose, as I look back on it, actually a lot of it was influenced by the period of the COVID pandemic. This wasn't what was in my head when I was writing it. I had ideas about, well, I've always been interested in buildings, and, you know, the more time you spend in them, the more you realise that every single one has a treasure trove of history. But the question is more sort of why then or why now? And I started work on the book in 2021 into 2022. And I think there had been a lot of debate in the public realm about religious space, about why communal space mattered, the evisceration of what they call the third space, anywhere that isn't work or home. And so I suppose in the back of my mind there was this sort of development of an idea that actually there needs to be a study of why Christianity has come to this point where space, physical space, matters. And one can trace that back all the way, I think, to changes that happened in the 20th century. We could talk about the Second Vatican Council, the rise of the internet, the rise of broadcast media, you name it. There have been things that have changed our relationship with physical space. But I thought, particularly in the light of lockdowns, etc., it was incumbent that someone made a case for why physical space still matters.
And one of the themes that I noticed throughout the book was and you started this with Bethlehem, and actually you finish in your conclusion with it, is the immanent and the transcendent coming together in faith. Very much the expression at Bethlehem of the Christ child, really physically, genuinely human, but also divine, the two coming together in the one person of Christ. And then in your conclusion, you're saying, well, this is actually what every parish church is like. It is the individual going who is then drawn upwards to the divine.
Yes, I think there is a vocation, a calling for every single church to be a Bethlehem and a Jerusalem, to be a place where one encounters, as you say, both the immanent and the transcendent, both the human and the divine. The idea that it's there that you engage with people on a very human level. You smile with them, we joke with them, you share in their very human joys, their very human failings, their tragedies. There's a reason why people come to churches for their christenings, for their weddings, and for their funerals. It's where the whole scope of human life is. But it is also the place where that humanity is taken up into and I think that having a place delineated to do that the more you think about it, it's just common sense. It's a very logical thing to have a church building.
Just two final thoughts. One on Mount Athos, where you went and you stayed, which has no women in it at all. I understand they don't even allow hens on Mount Athos. It's very strict.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things that struck me about Athos, which is sort of this alien landscape, it's a very barren mountain on the edge of a peninsula near Thessaloniki. And it is entirely male, as you said. They don't quite get cockerels to lay their eggs, but they're pretty close to having everything as male as it can be. There's only something like 12 women ever to have set foot on the mountain, one of whom is the Blessed Virgin Mary in an apparition in the early 20th century. But given how alien that is to so much of our lives in the West now, I was struck by how actually Athos, there were echoes of our culture everywhere. And not least, it actually helped me understand some of the transitions we're seeing with what they call Gen Z, Generation Z, the kind of return to actually a more puritanical attitude to sex, in particular among the younger generation. And you realise that Athos is entirely born out of people wanting to escape a world that was exceptionally violent, exceptionally sexually promiscuous, and exceptionally sort of, frankly, the mass prostitution, incest, rape of children was the norm. Things that we would find completely morally abhorrent today. And I wonder whether it helped me learn a little bit something about that turn perhaps we're seeing among the younger generation, that it's in reaction to excess that you always get these turns towards perhaps a more puritanical or a more rigid interpretation of sexual ethics. And Athos was that in the early 10th century. We may be seeing something similar now in the 21st.
And there's this constant thought that it's not about this life, it's about the next life. And therefore the history is so important. One of the churches you're responsible for has medieval wall paintings, and you can see some of the people from the past, long since dead, but who have moved on to the next stage of the Christian life.
Absolutely, and I think that's what I would say to anyone. Whether the metaphysics of Christianity are complicated. They're meant to be because the concept of human life is actually quite complicated, and the concept of our destiny afterwards is something that people have thought about for thousands and thousands of years and come up with some quite complicated thoughts about. What I would say to people is, whether you've got that absolutely nailed down or not, go into a church and go and see those marks of lives that have been lived, because it can be the most transformative thing to see our past alive. These are not museums. Churches are not museums, nor should they ever be. They are places where the faith is proclaimed, and what the faith says is that those people whether they are Victorian brasses kind of engraved in Gothic writing, or austere Georgian monuments, names of men who fell in the First World War, medieval brasses or wall paintings, those people are as alive now as they were then, and we are all caught up in this great sort of beauty of holiness in those spaces.
Fergus, thank you very much indeed. I'd strongly recommend people buy and read your book.
That's very kind. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Well, thank you to Mr. Butler-Galley. 12 Churches, An Unlikely History of Buildings That Made Christianity. It's now available from all good bookshops, and Mr. Amazon will no doubt provide it for you for a modest fee as well. It's the great line of Churchill that we make our buildings and then they make us. And I think this is so true, and this really comes across in this book, and the influence that churches have on the creation and understanding of Christianity. I was very lucky to have the privilege of seeing a preview copy. Anyway, that's all from me. I'm off to Scarborough tomorrow, actually, for a PopCon event. So if you're in Scarborough, do come up to me and say hello. I can't promise a GB News mug, because I don't think I've got any. Anyway, up next, it's the one and only, the great Nana Akua, standing in for Patrick Christie's. Nana, what is on your programme this evening?
Kirk, and obviously we're going to keep you up to date with everything that's happening on that. But also, we're going to be talking about Peter Mandelson. He's finally gone. Sir Keir Starmer's judgment is clearly in question. Could the armed forces? So we'll be talking about that too. So much here on Patrick Christie's tonight. I'm covering for him. Look forward to seeing you very shortly. Stay tuned. Loads more on the way. But first, let's get an update with your weather.
Today,
clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Evening. Tomorrow will be pretty similar to today. We're going to see heavy downpours, but 5 minutes later, the sun may well be out. A gusty wind blowing the heavy showers across the country. And like today, might even be a few thunderstorms around as well. Here's the reason why. Low pressure sitting just to the northwest. It's been a very wet and windy day in the far northwest. The winds ease a touch through the night, but the rain will persist over the highlands and the Western Isles. Elsewhere, lots of showers zipping through at the moment, but they will tend to ease from many eastern areas. I think lengthy clear spells here. Showers never too far away from western coasts. Temperature-wise, well, dipping down into single figures for some spots. Fresh but bright start to Friday over the Midlands, much of eastern England and eastern Scotland. Generally a dry, fine start. Plenty of showers, though, in the west, and those showers will simply become more widespread as we go through the day. But as I said, generally a dry, fine start over East Anglia and the Midlands. The showers in West Wales, northwest England, likely to be heavy. Might even get a rumble of thunder again. And the showers moving through Northern Ireland. Again, no parts of the east starting dry, and that east-west split also in evidence across Scotland, with plenty of showers in the west. The wind's not as strong as today, but still a gusty, blusterous day. The showers will, as I say, become more widespread, certainly from late morning onwards. We'll see some over the Midlands and eastern England. Always, though, most frequent in the west, just zipping through on that brisk and gusty wind, making it feel cooler than the numbers would suggest. Temperatures actually close to average for the time of year, but certainly feeling fresher with the wind and when the showers come along. And there'll be more of them on Saturday too. Again, that mixture of bright spells and heavy showers. We may start with some across the southeast on Saturday morning, but again, most of the showers in the west developing more widely through the day. Again, the odd rumble of thunder. Again, temperatures close to average, and then things likely to turn wet and very windy by the time we get to Sunday. Goodbye.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend